So hi, everyone. I'm Justin Connect. I'm joined with my bandmate, Caroline Gilliland. We're both from What Could Be. Hope you've been having a great summer. We skipped July because of the holidays, so I hope you're all enjoying your summers, but we're back on a monthly basis to get together and see what people are doing at the intersection of design thinking and AI. Just a couple of ground rules. We like to say be helpful and kind. You can use chat to communicate. Stay on mute unless you have a question. You can come off. You can drop a question into chat or raise your hand to speak. I know we all suffer a little bit of Zoom fatigue. We've only got a few people on the call today, so feel free to leave your video on. We're happy to see your faces, but mainly we're just trying to create a safe space. A few disclaimers. As you can tell, this is meant to be informal. So we're really just kind of shooting from the hip here, and we are just kind of sharing some stories of people's application. It's for learning, not about self-promotion. This is really about us seeing what people are actually doing. And this whole process is a learning process for us. So Caroline kind of took me to task once where I said I was working on a prototype for a standing desk. And after I used that prototype for 2 years, she said that is no longer a prototype. We're now doing our third session here, so we're still learning how we might want to structure these sessions. But I think 3 in, yes, I think we're always prototyping and learning, but we're still trying to figure out, are these the right length? How do we manage them in the right ways? All of those types of things. All right, so I would love to we like to kick off with a little bit of I don't know if you call it an icebreaker question, but I'm curious in chat if you were thinking about, and love this as a research question, the kind of magic wand question. If you could in chat, if AI could assist you with your work, I'm curious what it would do and why. And if you wouldn't mind dropping an answer or two into chat there, to hear what I have to say. Can you say some more about that, Jeroen?
Yeah, I work for a large IT consultancy firm. So the amount of email and amount of meetings that I see in my inbox that I have to decide on if I need to join this or not it's huge. So either I toss all of the emails away, or AI could assist me in really figuring out what really helps me to better do my job, and those meetings I should attend.
Nice, and maybe protect your calendar as well.
Definitely.
Samir, talk some more about the building a product roadmap. Have you done a little bit of that actually?
Yes. So basically, I have almost 17 years into this design field and product management and related disciplines. What I realized is every time we try to come up with a new concept or validate it, basically it's always limited by the data that we have in hand, and always there is a time constraint, and that also came up within those experiments I'll share. So I think AI can be a very powerful tool to help us in that way. So yeah.
Fantastic. How about you, Caroline? Translation of handwritten.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm seeing a lot is that people are working in this hybrid world where, we talk about these different apps that are out there to translate your handwritten sticky notes into digital sticky notes, which is great. But we are also now working in a very global space. And so I was on a call this morning where everything was written in German. And unfortunately, I can't speak German as much as I would like to. I speak Derry, and Derry is a very particular accent. And so when I'm working around the globe, I want people to be able to meet me at a point that suits them. So being able to transcribe into other languages, not just from kind of vocal, but also in handwritten kind of writing, depending on the language you're writing in, I should still be able to understand that. AI should be showing up for all of us in this hybrid and global world. So that's where I would love to see a bit of love.
Fantastic. And we won't have time to go through all of these. Maybe I'll, how about you, John? Expressive writing.
Yeah, when I first started, I've been using ChatGPT quite a bit lately with work projects, and I thought I would use it as a way to, I would use the AI to create the crappy first draft, and then I would edit it. That was going to be the relationship, but it turns out it's the other way around. It allows me to write sort of a very expressive, but not particularly well organized or clear first draft of my intent, and then I drop it in there, and it structures it, clarifies it, and gets it at the right length that I need. So I could say, you know, more concise, more descriptive, less, and I can sort of get it in the right space for whatever I'm trying to communicate. But it turns out I'm a more expressive writer than a clear one. It's exceptionally good at making my thoughts clearer. And I wish it would, I wish it would work in real time in Zoom, and it would have just said that in about 10 seconds.
So it basically records you, and you're just kind of like it's using your own face, and it's correcting what you're saying.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Yes,
it might be right around the corner for all we know.
Yeah.
You should do that live. I think that would be a hilarious TikTok. You get like 1 million subscribers immediately. I would be number one. Sorry to interrupt.
So thanks for a few of those. I want to make sure we have time. The reason we're here is to see some examples of how people are using this in their work. So I'm curious to get to that. We already have 2 presentations lined up for today. If you're interested, we'll ask you again at the end if there's someone else on the call who wants to share something next time. What we're finding is lining people up in advance has been more successful, and calling on them in these calls. So even Samir, we kind of sent a message to him based on some things he was doing and said, hey, will you come along? The same thing with Jeroen, where he said, hey, will you come and present? So if anyone else is interested in presenting next time, we'll ask at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeroen and let him introduce himself and show us what he's been working on. I'm going to stop sharing. After your introduction, you get started, I'll put a little timer up. If I can find it here, there it is. And I'll put a little timer up so you can see roughly how much time you have for in 10 minutes. But if you got questions, drop them into the chat. I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to allow Jeroen to get started. Nope. You might be on mute if you're.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well, just a brief introduction before we start. My name is Jeroen. I work at a company called Avanade, which is a large IT consultancy firm focused on everything with regard to Microsoft software. For the Netherlands, I lead a small team for people with a background in experience design and innovation. So we basically have 2 teams that sometimes blend, sometimes not, but support all the projects that we do on the Microsoft platform. And for the innovation part, we build a couple of engagements that we see that we are currently repeating over and over again when it comes to engagement with clients in the innovation space. I had some good discussions with Justin and David on design thinking and AI. We shared some of these topics. David asked me to present some of our work, but what I'm going to present is actually something different than we discussed earlier. We discussed, and I've seen the recordings of other presentations as well, that we are designing with AI. This is basically designing for AI. So how could we apply design thinking to come up with new solutions that are AI infused, so to speak? And we started this, I think, 2 years ago in our studio. We were looking for a way where we could combine design thinking and AI in order to run sessions, come up with ideas, not just with people with a very clear technical background who completely understand AI, but specifically with business domain owners, because they understand the problem, they see the opportunities, but they don't understand AI. No one's going to be able to completely understand AI. And it's really hard to explain it to someone who doesn't understand it, let alone help them figure out what the business value of AI could be. So we were looking for a way of working where we could do that and sort of not figure out all of the technical stuff, but really look at the value that AI could bring for a specific problem or within a specific business domain. Where we landed on is the AI design sprint. It's a framework and a license that we use from a company called 33A. Maybe you guys are familiar with that. I will share the link after the 10 minutes. And they have a great frameworks. I will show you a bit of how that works. We have adjusted it here and there to sort of fit our need. But I think if I show you guys how it works, you can probably relate it to your work as well, or figure out how you could use this for a specific client or specific challenges that you have, where you are in need of introducing AI to a business problem and figuring that out with people who don't have a clue what AI is. So if you have any questions, just use the chat. We'll figure that out. I have a deck where I'm gonna borrow 5 slides from just to show you what it is. So basically, it's mimicking what we already know of a design sprint, where we combine design thinking with a specific problem, trying to frame that, come up with ideas, and at the end have a prototype that we could validate with users. We have within our own company a very large department which is called Data and AI. So they do amazing projects with regard to AI. But what they always do is they always start with the data first. That's just they are the tech and data geeks. That's what they do. They start data first and do amazing job. This is completely different. This starts with the value, this starts with the problem, this starts with the user. So we needed this within our studio, trying to figure out if we could sort of dream big with our clients and then bring it down to something that's tangible, something that we could actually test with users. So very high over. This is basically the AI design sprint, the framework that sort of standard comes out of the box from 33A. It's all of these orange dots are basically standard workshops that you could run with clients where you don't need to have any AI expertise. As a facilitator, you also don't need that AI expertise. I'm definitely not an AI expert, but it goes from mapping an opportunity, so looking at an entire business or a set of products and services, figuring out where AI could be of most value. If you sort of capture that opportunity, then it goes to framing in that specific domain. For example, if you would like to start with HR, which of the processes within HR would be most interesting to start with AI? That's the framing. And from that point, you do concept development, which is one of these 4. These are 4 different workshops. You could either do process automation, so within a company. You can do products and services if you're applying AI to a product or service for your client. You could do conversational AI. There are a lot of clients that already know, I need a chatbot, I need a virtual agent. And of course, quite recently, we have Gen AI as well. You can run that sort of separately, or you could do that on top of process automation, products and services, or conversational AI. So lots of ways to sort of combine these things, but also pinpoint to what you would like to know. And I think apart from the maturity of a client, you can really start with AI opportunity mapping. We work for a lot of enterprise companies where they've all figured it out, and they would just say, well, we'd just like to do concept development because we know we have this process that we would like to optimize, and just let's start with that specific process in mind, and then we'll start with concept development. If we've done with concept development, then we have a final workshop which is an assessment. We have that concept developed, and we do a short assessment on the ethical part of the AI solution, business user, and a very high level technical part. And every time we take that step, we go back to the concept and figure out if it needs some adjustment or not. So if we've done that, then we basically have a concept that we could then either give back to the client and their technical teams, or we use our own data and AI team. They do a in-depth technical feasibility check where they truly figure out, based on the data that they really have, right? This was dreaming big, and now we're making it into something tangible and figuring out whether they could prototype in, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks' time. So this is the overall flow of the AI design sprint. And I'm skipping a whole bunch of slides. What makes it interesting is that introducing AI is something that we do with a card deck. And these cards, they are the AI cards. They are all of these. They are color coded. These represent specific categories of AI. So we have these digital. I have a whole. You can see it. A huge card deck, or bright, interesting colors. So, for example, it starts with finds and organized information, AI sees, AI reads, etc. And within each category, there are a couple of cards that explain the functionality of AI. So if you choose AI finds and organized information, you have a card that says AI finds relevant information with a few use cases at the other side of the card. Another example, AI creates and manipulates content with a few examples, with a few use cases on that card. So we basically do some card sorting to figure out which functionality do we need in order to optimize a product, a process, etc. And luckily there's sort of a system to all that madness, because all those color codings, they go from rather simple to very complex. So if you start using those cards and you see only green cards on the table, you say, well, this might be a bit too complex. Maybe we need to tone it down a bit to get something tangible. Or if it's just yellow, orange cards, we need to figure out a way to enthusiast the participants to really have them innovate on their process or on the problem that they're solving. And actually, in all of these workshops, we use the cards to go from opportunity mapping up until concept development and then the assessment. What I'd like to do is very briefly show you on a mural board some of what that might look like in real life. So this is, I will show two boards very quickly, looking at the time. Yeah. This is the board for process automation. So we take a look at the process, the AI technology, the solution. I will go in a bit more in depth on the other board. We do ethical cards, data cards, and we actually come up with sort of a summary of the entire solution. I have one board sort of anonymized. This is a board for a conversational AI workshop that we recently did. And this, we start with context. So I'm not going to zoom in that much because there's client data on here. We start with the goal of the chatbot, right? This is conversational AI, so it's going to be either a chatbot or a virtual agent. We start with the goal. We start with the actual user. Of course, all of these workshops are either you can just run them straight off, and then the value that you get out of it is the value that the participants bring in, or you can put in all of your design research into this workshop and use it as a sort of a decision-making framework. So we had already a persona ready for this. So we have a goal for the chatbot. We have a persona. We then very high level work out a very small as-is journey. These are 5 steps. In 5 steps, how does the user gets to the goal nowadays? They visualize the journey, always fun in Mural. And then we do very quickly figuring out what are opportunities from a business perspective in optimizing this journey and what are opportunities from a user perspective. And then point out 2 most important journey steps. So if we don't have enough time, we can only focus on these 2. And then we start with the AI cards, and this is basically just mapping these AI cards based on every step in a journey. So if you want to optimize this step in a journey, we think we need these cards. This is conversational AI, so we don't use all of these cards because there's less functionality needed in a virtual agent or a chatbot. And the way we introduce these cards is by very quickly introduce them per category with examples. And this is the way how you can make it sort of fit to a specific industry. If you have only finance, you can show all sorts of finance examples, etc. So with that, you have the current journey, you have the most important AI cards with a bunch of activities that you do here, and you rewrite the journey into a to-be journey. Visualize that again, and then this is something that I like. This is just playing around with fancy looking cards. We also designed the personality of the chatbot. So we have personality cards for that to figure out where it needs to land, how much of the company brand's personality or the user personality do you want to have in there, and you refine that by these cards. So this chatbot doesn't have a gender, it's other, it's classy as soft, it's sociable, motivating, listening, balanced, thoughtful, stating facts, full of life, it's amusing, intelligent, funny, witty, and to the point, and it sounds a bit like a young David Attenborough. And with that, we do a final step, which is sort of a concept poster, so to speak. So we have on the left-hand side the chatbot with the goal, who it refers to, the young David Attenborough, the personality per journey step, the functionality of AI, and we have the user on the right-hand side. And then we start designing a first conversation flow. And this is basically just a briefing to the team. Hey, this is the concept that we would like to go for. And of course, this all looks a bit messy. So at the end, this is something that we deliver to a client. Okay, this is the concept that we've created, right? The chatbot on the left-hand side, conversation flow in the middle, and the user on the right-hand side. This is basically sort of the first input that we have of a concept that we can then do an assessment on, and then do a technical validation. Sorry, Justin, that was just over the 10
No,
minutes.
I didn't want to cut you off. I was really really into what you were sharing. I had a question. I think I know the answer to this one, and I'd like to hear if there's other questions from the group. Are the cards proprietary? Is that something that you've designed within Avanade, or is that something that can be shared?
This is something within the license from 33A.
Oh, so they are available through 33A.
Yeah.
Real license through 33A. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I think when we started 2 years ago, it was sort of a one package deal, right? You need to be certified as a facilitator, then get the frameworks and the cards. I think nowadays you can just get the cards from them.
Great. Thanks for that. And you'll drop the link into chat.
Yeah,
Jackie was asking if you can share your presentation. I have a feeling that that's probably proprietary.
Yeah, I can however share something else. I have a sort of a one pager on this. That's something I can share. Yeah.
And Jackie, the recording of this session will be available afterwards, but not the stuff that Jeroen's sharing with us. Other questions? We've got a minute or two for questions before we have another. Yeah, John.
Yeah. The cards are fascinating. I can imagine they'd be very useful, but given the rate of change and the sort of speed at which the capabilities are advancing and changing, I wonder, like, how long would those cards still be relevant and useful, just given the pace of change, or have you find them to be? Yeah,
that's a very good question, but unfortunately, that's something where 33A is really good at, and making new versions of these cards. So they recently released version 3 of the cards with some extra categories, some extra functionality. So they're really on top of that and making sure that that's up to date.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's a question from Jay-Z about, and Jay-Z, you can always clarify a monetization or business metrics. Is that part of the process that you're showing here, the business case and monetization?
Sorry.
Oh, just for chatbots, they're automating a manual process. So you're displacing workers,
Yeah, they're not specifically in this one that you just saw. But if I look at the sort of I'm sort of call this sort of the standard framework for process automation, there are in the assessment things with regard to the user and to the business, where they go back to, okay, what are the actual what are we solving for the user? How many hours are they actually winning or gaining by this solution? And it gives a bit of insight in what the actual business does. So we've done one that was internally for HR with all of the people that Avanade in the broader sense would like to recruit, and all of the CVs that they had. Is that process of the CVs coming in and judging them. What could we do with AI? And that was interesting to see how much time they would actually be able to save with that, especially if you turn it around to business metrics as well. So there is some in the standard framework. There is some of that in there, but of course we're free to figure that out ourselves and change it in the way that you'd like to have.
Yeah, average handle time is absolutely that main business metric. So that's great to see. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Samir asks, and we'll actually then hear from Samir, is what kind of prior experience in AI is needed for the participants? You kind of kicked off with that as a frame. So
none, to be honest, because this is just done with marketeers. The session that I showed, they have no expertise available. It is something that if it's there, it's good to have. But this is still sort of dreaming big. So if you were to have only AI experts in there, they would probably start asking all of those questions. Is the data available? Does it work? Whatever, and you'll be sort of flushing out that dream. It's really looking at the business. What could we achieve? And we'll figure that stuff out later on. But then we would have something to work towards. Then we could start building a roadmap to get there.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing in the group.
Okay, thank you.
Samir, can I put 10 minutes on the clock for you to share something, and we'll get in just under our 45 minutes.
Sure. Yep.
All right.
I'll do it.
Let's do it.
Super. Let me share my screen very quick. Give me a minute. You are able to see my deck, maybe?
Yep.
Super. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this team, and sharing whatever I have been experimenting for last 6 months. So, if you see, this is about a paper which recently I tried to publish into ACI International, and it is more geared towards how we can actually run design thinking or related all these UCD type frameworks, right, using AI. So it is not AI for it's not design for AI, rather than using AI to run your design ops, or design operations rather, to optimize the overall process. So what we have seen in last few years is design ops has become one of the key a focus area, right, where we try to find out, okay, what is the most optimum way to actually reduce all those 1 minute. I think this is blocking, right? Oh, yeah. So all these gaps between different touch points within a process, right? So and I have been exploring that part for a long time, and what I realized is if we can come up with something that will actually help us bridge those gaps, I think maybe the time or other things can be reduced, as well as the quality of the outcome, right, that can be actually improved. Because if you take any of these frameworks, right, maybe let's say a classical design thinking approach, right, or any other design sprints or service design practicing frameworks, right. So what we realize is, first of all, you need the right data. The second thing is you need that the time at your convenience to actually run the whole process in a prescribed way, right? But what happens is we conducted some surveys in initial phases of this whole experiment, where we got the feedback like, it's mostly like we try to do the trade-off in actual ground. Like, we connected with like 17 plus startups in India who try to like, come up with new innovative products, and like, they try to follow some kind of like, design thinking and related frameworks. And one of the major drawback was like, okay, they could not find that runway. Like, the time was actually one of the key challenge for them to conduct the overall thing, get the data from the field, and once they have it, analyze that, like, and come up with the right concept, validating it. So all these takes time, and time, like, is equivalent to money, right? And for the startups and all, what we'll see is like, they always have a like, constraint in time as well as like, the cost side, right? So then we thought of like trying to come up with something where like, we try to find out, okay, can we use AI to like, breeze some of those points and see. So in this experiment, what we did was like, we tied up with like, a few organizations in India. And one is like, also government, where like, they try to promote the innovation aspect, like, how we can connect with the entrepreneurs and all. And what happened is we connected with these like 17 participants and tried to like, filter them out and find like, finally, we formed the group out of like 12 participants. And all these members were actually from the startup community, mostly like small business or the startup side. And we built a prototype. It's a very basic prototype using like, jQuery, HTML, and we used OpenAI APIs, mostly the Avanade, and we started like, using our own data sets to train them. The overall idea was like, can we come up with something very, very basic, like, so we started training them for a very specific task. If you look at all these design frameworks, you will find like, okay, there is like so many tools. So we started with persona and empathy mapping, because we had the data readily available from HR sites, like job descriptions, demographic details. So we started building this whole tool for that. And what we tried to do was like, we come up with a tuned model. So basically you can use your custom data, train any of those models that are available in OpenAI, and that will become your tuned model, so that it can understand that exact context and try to like, narrow down those like, the data set and give you the outcome. So in this whole process, if you see, this is the UI that very basic, like, very crude, where we try to define, okay, what are those different stages. So you see like, there's empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. We focused on empathize side. And then there is like, a drop down where you can actually select different tasks. Like, there can be multiple tasks, like, okay, can I use demographic data and come up with like, something related to a persona or an empathy map. There can be like, the data where like, you may have like empathy maps. Let's say you split the group into two parts, and then, or three parts, right? And each of the subgroups, right, they will come back with different empathy maps based on the same set of data, right? Then how can we like, combine them and come up with the resultant persona or empathy map that way? Also like, the few tasks we built. And then like, so basically this is all around this. I'll share this deck, like, you can also have a look at this. And then see, what we try to do was we try to identify three basic, like, areas to actually explore. One was like creating a proto-persona. Proto-persona, like it's mostly the stakeholders, what kind of like, the assumptions and hypotheses they may have for the target user segment, right? Their prior experience, right? That is used, and with some basic set of like, demographic details, you try to come up with that, because it's very fast, and then you can refine that proto-persona over the way, right? The second one was like, the creating a persona and the empathy map from the set of qualitative data, like, interview data we collected along with the demographic data. And we tried to come up with that outcome, whether we are able to do that. The third one was similar, like, just the difference was it was a diary study. Can we like, run a diary study, and can we come up with the persona? Can we actually like, come up with something which is very close? So if you look at this, these are typical like, flow that we followed. So if you see, there are like multiple touch points here, right, within this. One is like, because you are participant, you will go through those like, data sets that you got from the field. The second one is like, individually, like, you can ideate, like, let's say they are like, in status, mostly like, there will be one founder, two founders, or two or three like, stakeholders will be there, and they will try to like, ideate quickly to come up with something very fast and quick. And so this can also be part of that. So, and in a typical approach also, you may divide the whole group into multiple subgroups and try to come up with various versions of the what you try to achieve, and then you try to groom it together. So the group activity can be there, and then we always believe either the AI anyway is not matching, or maybe there will be some kind of gap in the context. So there should be some stage for the actual moderation by the real team, right? So we kept the moderation in each of those experiments. So the variation that you see, this is one variation. So it is the same flow. So if you see in this experiment, right, we ran actually 3 sessions. In this session, you see individual activity that you used to have, right? We replaced that with AI tool. So we come up with 4 groups, 3 members each. What actually happened is, in 2 of those groups, right, they only did this whole thing manually, and 2 of them actually they used the tool that we created using OpenAI APIs, and we try to see whether the we can try to calculate the amount of time that was actually saved. And the second variation was okay, I mean, once we do that, can we do the synthesis or the group activity? We replace the group activity with AI. This was the second session of that, and in this other things were manual, if you see. And similarly, the third one is okay, I mean, even the individually, when you get the raw data, you process that and try to put it along with the your demographic details, right? So can we actually get that outcome? But if you look at it, all these variations have this moderation at the end, where whatever you get, you refine that, and then you get your outcome. So mostly it's if you see, this was the demographic details that we actually gathered. We tried to come up with the empathy map or the persona, which we tried to run. And there was one other side where the research data, the qualitative things that we tried to come up with, and then we tried to translate that into empathy map. From empathy maps individually created, those we combined for the to create the final persona. The third one is the similar one, which were the diary study was there. Then we came up with the empathy maps and try to frame those empathy maps into a persona. So outcome was it was almost if you see 48.5, you can take the half of the effort can be actually saved if we use AI in this whole process. And this was we came up with, and page 1 talks about that the constraint of time that I was actually referring to. So the demo that I'm going to show you about the tool, right? I mean, this is all available in the as a form of the paper. You can go through that. I'll share the links and the details. And let me show you the glimpse of a few AI tool, how it was actually doing. So if you look at it, what happens is, so this one, right, this was showing how we are actually using demographic data to come up with the empathy map. So basically you can provide any sort of empathy mapping, and it will try to generate the empathy map out of that. It can also build the persona, but that was not very closer to what we expected. But yeah, we were able to build those empathy map out of that in a in a consistent manner. And then when we try to combine that with the qualitative research input, we got a very decent persona mapping out of that. So this was one, you can use that, and then you can run the whole thing to come up with the it was basically from the demographic data, right? So the very next thing is yeah, this is the proto-persona it is saying, but basically the whole idea is when you run a proto-persona, right, it is limited by the assumption and the prior experience of the data in hand, that is by the team that is participating, because you don't have the field data, right? But in this case, because the model is trained, right, and that is already have I think we used 22 industry profiles there to just make sure that okay, within this industry and this kind of job profiles we can build it. So if you imagine if you train the model with large amount of those in profile data, right, what it can actually do is it will able to break that barrier of what you are actually trying to get through your typical proto-persona. So the quality can be improved, and the gap between the actual persona and what we are trying to build, right, that delta will be actually removed. And here what I'm trying to show you is okay, I build one persona, and then I can try that experiment with different group of people. So let's say there are like 3 groups, and then they create 3 persona or 3 empathy maps. Also, I can do that synthesis using AI. So this is now going to create. This is the second persona it is trying to create, and now it will combine them actually in the very next step. Let me fast forward in the interest of time. But yeah, all these videos and all, and this is here you see I'm copying pasting these 2 sets of persona data into the system, and it will try to combine them in it and come up with a resultant persona, which is more closer to what we try to do it manually, right? So I pasted both of them, and it will run it. So yeah, this is so yeah, I think this was mostly it. I mean, I'll share those details and
yeah, if you share the link to the paper, and if you're able to share the link to the video, we can watch it and we can collect some questions and get back to you on that. So I just I feel bad cutting either of you off today, but obviously we want to be conscious of your time that you've spent with us. And I will just remind everyone that thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be getting together again on the 28th of September. And if anyone else on this call, or if you know someone else who might be interested in presenting, that would be absolutely fantastic. Let us know in chat, via email, etc. But thanks so much for joining us today. And thanks so much to Jeroen and Samir for presenting, and we hope to see you next month.
Thank you. Looking forward.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.